Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. S66036, Arthur and the Big Blowup, Chapter 1. I'm open, cried Arthur, wildly waving his arm. He was calling from midfield. His team, Lakewood, was nearing the end of a soccer game against Estabrook. The Lakewood team included Buster, Binky, Sue Ellen, Francine, and the Brain. Estabrook had scored first, but the lead hadn't lasted. Lakewood had tied things up at the end of the half. Buster saw Arthur waving and waved back. Oh, he realized suddenly. Arthur wants me to pass. Buster kicked the ball downfield to Arthur. Arthur took a step back to get it, turned the ball, but the ball sailed over his head. He had no chance to reach it, but Francine did. As the ball hit the ground, the Francine trapped it neatly and turned toward the opposing goal. Two defenders were darting toward her. Francine waited until they were close enough. Then she faked them out and dribbled past them. The Brain was waiting at the far goal post. He gave Francine a small nod. Francine nodded back, leaning forward. She chipped the ball toward the goal. The goalie leaped up with her arms extended, but the ball escaped her grasp. Seeing his chance, the Brain jumped forward and headed the ball toward the net. Score Lakewood now led 2-1. Prunella and Fawn cheered from the sidelines. I knew we'd get ahead, said Fawn. I just knew it. We haven't lost a game yet. Prunella nodded. Everybody is playing so well, and there is really a good teamwork. If we can keep it up, we'll win the championship for sure. The Fawn cheered. Then it's on to the Super Bowl. She squealed. Prunella shook her head. There is no Super Bowl in soccer. Fawn, that's football. No, Fawn shrugged. Well, the World Series then, the Fall Classic, the Fawn, there is no World Series either. That's baseball. Fawn frowned. Well, where do we go for soccer? The World Cup, said Prunella. Or the Olympics. Okay, sounds good to me. The whistle from the referee signaled the end of the game. As everybody on both teams shook hands, Sue Ellen caught up with Binky. If we win one more game, we make the playoffs, she said. Binky smiled. No problem, he said. We've got a tough team at midfield. Binky, you play midfield. Uh-oh. Exactly. Buster came running up to the Brain and clapped him on the shoulder. You really used your head on that last one, he said. The Brain grinned. Buster, I can always count on you to say it's just the right thing. Buster beamed. Nobody can beat us as long as we have you and Francine. That's right, said Arthur. The Francine did a great job setting up the score. Thanks, Arthur, said Francine. You played a good game too. The Fawn ran up with the camera. Let me get a shot for the school newspaper. The team gathered around the Brain and Francine, shuffling into position. Say, armadillo with a pillow. Fawn told them, the armadillo with a pillow. They shouted, laughing. The Fawn snapped the picture. Chapter 2. Even though the team was doing well, everyone knew how important it was to keep practicing, so they got together the next afternoon to scrimmage. The team split into groups. Francine was the captain of one. The Brain led the other. Buster kicked the ball downfield. It bounced off Arthur's stomach and landed near his feet. Arthur, I'm open, cried Francine. Arthur's stomach hurt, but he took a deep breath and kicked the ball toward her. Nice pass, said Francine, taking the ball. She began dribbling down the sideline. Hey, out of bounds, shouted the Brain, running over. I'm not, Francine insisted. Look at my foot, the Brain pointed at the line. Your foot was over the line. You just moved it back. No way. Your eyes are playing tricks on you to make up for the fact that I am better than you are. The Brain stiffened. There's nothing wrong with my eyes. You are the one who can't see right. Oh, yeah? This argument went on and on. The other players just sat down to wait it out. All except Pinky, he remained standing, bouncing the ball on his head. 3,478. 3,479. 3,470. I wish I'd brought a book, said Buster after yawn. He looked over at Francine and the brain, who showed no signs of letting up. That's not true, it is. Hey guys, I've got this amazing idea. What do you say we finish the game? Pinky caught the ball. Yeah, my head is getting sore. The brain folded his arm. Folded his arms. Obviously, we're not going to settle this ourselves. We need an arbitrator. A what? Arbitrator? A kind of judge. Someone we trust. He looked around. You saw what happened, Arthur? You make the call. Me? That's right. Arthur tried to think back. Uh, well, at first, it looked like her food was over. The Come on, said Francine. Arthur wears glasses. Are you going to trust what this is? No, no, said the brain. Let's be fair. Arthur is honest and trustworthy. He put his arm around Arthur's shoulders. Why? There's no better kid in the whole class. Whole school. Go on, Arthur. Tell Francine she was out of bounds. Arthur shifted his eyes from side to side. The brain was grinning at him from one direction and Francine was frowning from the other. Francine sighed. All right, Arthur, you get to decide, but don't just agree with the brain because boys always stick together. Arthur hesitated, but then it looked like her foot wasn't. The brain's smile faded. Oh, so now you're going to stick up for her? Uh-huh. Let him speak, brain. Go ahead, Arthur. Uh-oh, said Binky, cupping his ear with his hand. That's my mom calling. I got to go home for dinner. Can't you wait a little? Asked Arthur. You have the only bowl. Binky laughed. I never wait when dinner is ready. He ran off with the bowl under his arm. Without a ball, said Buster, the game is over. Then I guess it doesn't matter who's right anymore, said Arthur. He stopped out from between his two feuding friends. I think I'll go home too. Within a minute, everyone had left. Everyone except Francine and the brain. They just stood there, glaring at each other, and neither of them spoke a word. Chapter 3. The next afternoon in class, Buster nudged Arthur in the side. Francine and the brain are still mad at each other, he whispered. Really? I never thought it would last this long. It's still going strong, said Buster. You should have seen them at the beginning of lunch. They were fighting over a bowl of pistachio pudding. It was the last one, and neither of them wanted to give it up. What happened? The pudding ended up flying through the air and landing on Mr. Henny's arm. It was not a pretty sight. Was he mad? Asked Arthur. Mr. Henny, I mean. Buster looked a little uncomfortable. Well, he would have been, I'm sure, but he just thought I had sneezed on him. So he told me to use a handkerchief. Then he left as quickly as possible. That was lucky for them, said Arthur, but they can't count on always being saved like that. He looked over as Francine accidentally dropped the pencil on the floor. It rolled in front of the brain's foot. Muffy, could you hand me that pencil? She asked. Muffy frowned. Why don't you ask the brain? He's closer. The brain can see it very well, said Francine. How is he going to see the pencil? The brain snorted. Muffy, tell Francine that I see just fine. Francine, the brain sees just fine, which is why he's going to pick up your pencil. I'm afraid not, said the brain. It would be unwise for me to touch it. If I did, I might catch something nasty from Francine. Like what? Asked Muffy. The brain shuddered. Like whatever makes her so Francine. Snorted Francine, turning away. Double said the brain. Quiet down, said Mr. Rathbun, calling for everyone's attention. It's time for the speed quiz. The class groaned. Mr. Rathbun went right on talking. No comments, please. You knew this was coming. Just take one quiz and pass the rest around. He gave out a few piles. The brain took his and was about to pass on the rest when he realized he was giving his pile to Francine. Abruptly, he turned to pass the papers to Fun on his left. Hey, said Francine. Brain paid no attention. Francine had to wait for other copies to work their way around to Muffy, who was just sitting next to her. Here you go, Francine, said Muffy, handing her the last one. What about B? Arthur whispered. He was just sitting behind Francine, and the quizzes had never reached him. Why don't you ask your friend the brain? Francine suggested. Psst, brain, psst. No talking loud during the quiz, said Mr. Rapper. You have 1 minute. Please begin. Arthur looked around. Everyone else was hard at work. He raised his hand. Mr. Rappon had his back turned. Mr. Rappon, he called out finally. I think time is up. Everyone stop writing. Arthur leaned over to Buster. If Francine and the brain don't make up soon, I'll never make it to 4th grade. Chapter 4. Later that afternoon, Arthur and Buster slowly walked home from school. The heads were down. The shoulders were slumped. Both of them were wearing the soccer uniform, although it was hard to tell because they were covered with mud. It was a disaster, catastrophe, Arthur added, a tragedy, a real misfortune. All in all, Buster finished. It was just bad. They were talking about the soccer game they had just played. Like Lakewood had lost 5-1, and it had never even felt close. For a few minutes went well. So Ellen scored a cross shot, and Pinky stopped that big guy from getting through. Yeah, but then, remember when I said that I hoped the Francine and the brain weren't too mad to play together, said Buster. Yes, said Arthur, and I said they would never let a little thing like an argument hurt our chances of winning. Boy, was I wrong. Buster nodded. Francine had refused to pass to the brain. The entire game, at least 3 times, he had been wide open in front of the goal, waving his arm to get her attention. Buster could tell that Francine had seen the brain waving, but she had ignored him every time. Instead, she had passed to Arthur, who had been immediately swarmed by the opposing players. Arthur sighed. I lost the ball twice, and both times the other team scored. It wasn't your fault, Buster told him. You never had a chance, but I'm really worried now. If Francine and the brain stay mad at each other, we'll never win another game. Arthur sighed. And we won't make the playoffs. They shared a worried look. We have to remind them how much they used to like each other, said Buster. I read this story once, said Arthur. It was about two friends who got really mad at each other. It was kind of a misunderstanding, but they were both too stubborn to admit it. Did the story have a happy ending? Asked Buster. Not until both of them had traveled around the world and had saved each other from a hurricane, a swarm of killer bees, and an erupting volcano. We don't have time for that, said Buster. Besides, we can't afford to send Francine and the brain on a big trip. I know, said Arthur, but we still need a plan. Arthur stopped to think. Maybe it would help if they played something just for fun. Something far from the competition of soccer. Good idea, said Buster. If we can remind them why they were such good friends in the first place, that'll patch things up. For sure. Arthur frowned. Of course we'll have to get them together first. That won't be easy, said Buster. They may not want to spend any time together. In that case, said Arthur, we just won't tell them until it is too late. Chapter 5. What's he doing here? Francine asked Arthur as she pointed to the brain. Oh, didn't I mention the brain was coming? No, you didn't. I would have remembered that. Arthur tried to laugh, but it came out as more of the gurgle. I must be getting old, he said. I'm sure I meant to say something about it. The brain was no happier to see Francine Then she wants to see him. Buster, you never said she'd be here. Buster scratched his head. I didn't. I didn't? Imagine that. Funny how these things can slip your mind. They were all standing in Buster's basement in front of his ping pong table. I'm leaving, said Francine. Count me out, agreed the brain. Come on. You two can leave, yeah? We thought we'd play some doubles. Nice and relaxing, Buster added. Brad, you and I will be one team. Arthur and Francine will be the other. Arthur took Francine by the shoulder and led her to one side of the table. Buster led the brain to the other. The ping pong is fun, said Buster. Isn't it, Arthur? I say, Arthur answered brightly. Don't you agree, Francine? Oh, sure, she said dully. Fun. What about you, brain? Asked Buster. Very amusing. And good exercise too, said Arthur. How about I serve? The ball crossed the net and hit the brains of moving pedal. It came back over the net and bounced once. The Francine slammed it back to him. Oh yeah, snapped the brain. He didn't care what happened when Arthur served, but he was not about to let Francine get the better of him. He returned her slam with one of his own. The ball whizzed back and forth. Arthur and Buster stepped aside to watch. Well, they are playing together, said Buster. True said, but I'm not sure they are having fun. Francine and the brain finally stopped. Both were out of breath and leaned heavily on the table. Whose point? Gasped Francine. Brain took a deep breath. Don't know, the ball appeared to have vaporized, It's getting a little stuffy in here. Maybe we should go outside. That's right, said Buster. Sunshine, fresh air. He took a deep breath. The last one to the treehouse is a rotten egg. Before the Buster could make another move, Francine and the brain ran up the stairs and out the door and headed for Arthur's house. A few minutes later, Arthur and Buster approached the treehouse. They could hear the arguing from half a block away. No way were you first, snapped Francine. If we had the proper video recording equipment, said the brain, I would prove it to you. The Francine sniffed at the air. I smell an egg. She took a step toward the brain and sniffed again. A rotten egg. Well, so do I. And you're the sauce. Oh, really? Francine turned to Arthur. Sorry I can't stay. The smell is overpowering. Buster, said the brain. My olfactory senses are overwhelmed. I'll see you later. He stalked off in one direction. Francine marched away in another. Arthur and Buster watched them go. You had to mention the eggs, said Arthur. Buster sighed. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Any other good ideas, Arthur asked. Not at the moment, Buster admitted. They both sat down to think.